At this time, I'd like to introduce Bill Bolin, who is the incoming president of YBAA. He's S&J Yachts out of Annapolis. And Paul explained the hierarchy, but he's the incoming president. Outgoing president, having done a great job, is Eric Smith. And J.P. Scal, who we'll hear from later on as well, is the ex-executive director. Did I get that right, Paul? Well, mostly. Okay. Bill.
Well, good morning. I hope everyone's good this morning. We haven't had our morning smile, so I'm going to tell you a little story to start things off. And I can see JP already cringing. My brother-in-law is an avid golfer, loves to golf. Every Friday at 6:30, he golfs wherever he is. And one of his foursome that he golfs with up in Raleigh, North Carolina, died. And they were looking for a new person to join their foursome. They came in after playing the round, and the golf pro introduced them to a young lady who had just moved to the area. She had played golf in college, and she had a two-stroke handicap, which fit right in with my brother's group. So they warned her. They said, we start at 6:30 in the morning, and she said, I'm an early riser. I'll be there. So the following Friday, she shows up, and they go out and play a wonderful round of golf, and she talks about sports and politics, and they have a great conversation. Everybody likes her. So they said, you got to be here at 6:30 every week. And she says, look, I may be late every once in a while, but I promise I'll be here at 6:30 or 6:45. So the following week, she doesn't show up till 6:45, and they're kind of grousing about it. But she goes out and golfs another wonderful round. They have a great conversation. They like her. This goes on for a month, and they decide to have lunch together after the round, and they notice that sometimes she played left-handed, sometimes she played right-handed, and she was good both ways. And they said, how do you decide which way you're going to play? And she said, well, she kind of blushed a little bit, and she says, my husband sleeps naked, and I get up in the morning and I look under the sheets, and if he's lying off there to the left, I play left-handed. If he's lying off to the right, I play right-handed. My brother-in-law says, okay, what if it's straight? She goes, well, then I'm 15 minutes late. So we're going to talk about YBAA a little bit, but in particular, we're going to talk about the CPYB program. How many CPYBs do we have in here? Quite a few. Good for you. The Certified Professional Yacht Broker program has been around for many years. I don't know, 1998, 92, mid-90s it started. It's a way for you as a professional broker to get certified, kind of the master's degree certificate, CPYB initials after your name. It shows that you are really devoted to the cause, and you've become an expert in a number of areas. We talk about ethics, we talk about professionalism, we talk about product knowledge, systems, a lot of things that we all know about, but we take it to the next level. And the old adage, if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it. There are a lot of fly-by-night brokers in the country, not necessarily here in Florida, but around the country. And CPYB kind of sets you apart from the rest of the group. If you're going to hire somebody to do a major remodeling of your home, you certainly wouldn't hire Joe's remodeling off the street. You'd look for credentials and hire somebody correctly. So I've got a couple slides that are coming up, but Vin Petrella, we'll talk about in a minute, gave me a book years ago that defines sailing as slowly going nowhere, all at great expense, or standing in a shower in cold water, tearing up $100 bills. In that book was a definition of a yacht broker, and it said that the yacht broker was on the evolutionary scale right between green blue algae and the cherry stone clam. So I'm going to assume that all of us in this room have evolved a little beyond that. I'm not going to read the cards behind me. You can read those at your leisure, but I'll give you some quick highlights. CPY certification in North America includes Canada, about just over 400, so not a whole lot of us out there. And 119 in Florida. Melanie just told us there's, almost 3,000 licensed brokers in the state. I mean, that means, less than 3% or roughly 3% of the brokers in the state of Florida are CPYB. And I really shouldn't be pitching the CPYB program because I use it to my advantage when I go look for a listing, when a buyer's broker approaches me. I certainly use the CPYB moniker and how I set myself apart. And they're going to call 29 other brokers before they're going to find another CPYB. So it's a very sellable commodity on your business card, on your letterhead, et cetera. So I'm encouraging those that aren't CPYB to get that certification. So next slide is, it used to be in the old days, you had to buy this book, study it, and then go to a 3-hour proctored exam where you were in a dark room and they had retired nuns with rulers walking around to make sure that you kept your eyes on your own paper. And you had to pass this in one fell swoop, 5 different assessments, if you will, 5 different groups: ethics, broker responsibilities, legal, regulatory, boat knowledge, construction systems, all that kind of stuff. We've changed all that. One of the things that YBAA did, we administer the CPYB program with a lot of input from the rest of the North American associations through what's called the Certification Advisory Council, CAC. We kind of administer it out of our offices. If you were at the desk in the back where the YBAA or Trish and Cindy are, you can go back there and ask them questions about the program. But we spent a lot of money this past year, and we now have online training and online testing to make it easier for you to get your CPYB. There's an online, or you can still buy the paperback version of the things that you'll need to know to pass the test. And then you sign up for the test online. They get a 30-day window, and you go through the 5 assessments, the 5 tests, if you will, through this kind of guided learning. And you have 30 days to complete all 5. If you fail it, you get 1 more retry free. If you fail it twice, you've got to start over again. So it's really streamlined the process. We had 33 new CPYBs in 2023. I don't have the new numbers for 2024, but we'll exceed those, and next year should be even greater. I hope everybody in this room can join that group. So next slide, please. So I mentioned, once you get your CE certification, you need to keep that certification. The people in this room that are CPYB certified are earning 7 credit hours today toward their continuing education. You have to have 21 hours every 3 years to keep your certification correct. So it's not a lot.
Yeah, you can imagine it. And so much I would say, people about that, but I think it's actually good for us. So 21 credit hours in 7 years, 21 credit hours every 3 years, 7 for this event, 7 for the West Coast Seal Summit sponsors, 7 hours for YBAA use on script and or during summer. So there's a lot of opportunities to get that. In addition, on the slide, I know there are 21 online credit courses, 1 hour apiece, that you can build online and watch all spring Blackbird and be covering them for 3 years. So there are alternatives to these in-person meetings. So you've got in-person, you've got online, and then I know that there's YBAA does, like how the Canadian work does, and so all online learning, on Rapers, Frenches. We've had a number of them. They're brains. They've used to listen and learn about what they do for it. Depending on frozen language. In 2019, at the trial I mentioned, gave me a soap then I became the executive director of YBAA. He ended up really the character behind the CPYB programs. I think he was better for self-regulation, and so we get them outside and regulate us. So the CPYB program is one of our Ben's efforts. And when he then retired as our second director in 2019, me created the Vince Petrella Chairman's Award. be given to the outstanding CPYB of the year. Yes, it was chosen by those years. CPYB has to be CPYB enacted active status. They have to be active cleaning, active sailing. They have to be selling, listing, painting, balance, so all those characteristics are rolled into the building as a year. We've got some CPYB as some Emma can share whereas in your right thing. I was good. I see Alex, however, Fernline Melody is one of the past winners. So kept well, but two one every year since 2009 season 7. I best anybody in here that's sure the league later haven't. Jim Knott will be on this year's winner. We've been trying to present to we're here at this event. Schedule.
Shouting when the speaker comes back on. So this year's winner is we back on? This year's winner is a woman from Essex, Connecticut, Essex Yacht Sales founder. Her name is Leslie Quirins. So we were able to present this to her a few weeks ago. There's a picture of her somewhere coming up. Leslie has been a CPYB since the beginning. She was on the original certification advisory council member with Vin Petrella. Really been an outstanding member in the community, and we presented that to her earlier last month. So that wraps it up for the quick updates. If there's questions, there's a couple websites that would be up there on the board, but you can go out to the YBAA table and talk to a couple of our representatives back there about any of the CPYB program or getting involved with that, and I encourage you to do so. Okay. Paul.
You go. There you go. They have to walk through the crowd.
Yeah, because we all know my voice doesn't carry, right? Is the mic on? Yes, it sounds like it is. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you, Bill. Some of the other winners of the CPYB Award have been Brian Comet from Northrop & Johnson up in Rhode Island, Gary Smith from SYS Yachts over in Sarasota. It's a great program, and I encourage you to look more into it, because it does help you sharpen your skills and hone your skill set to be a better broker. And the bottom line is that's what we're all about. Professionalism and consumer protection is what our associations are about. It's why we band together to try to bring a higher level of professionalism, thereby enhancing consumer protections. That's my story, and I am sticking with it. So what's going on at IYBA these days? 2,060 members, and the last couple of years that I've been up here to give these updates, I've been proud to announce that we're trending upward and upward and upward. I think we're upward maybe by about 12 members from the last time, but we're making good progress. Melanie had mentioned how many licensees there are in the state. Our brokerage or professional members, we have two different categories, professional and affiliate. Yacht brokers or license holders are our professional members, and affiliate members are all related industries that want to have access to the yacht brokerage community. Our professional members number around 1,100. So about 55% of our membership is professionals, license holders, voting members of the association, and that's about 25% penetration on the licensing in the state of Florida. We'd like to see more than that. I think probably half of the people that hold licenses in the state of Florida are actively using them. So I would guess maybe at 50%. So with IYBA, one of the more important things, just like in any business, it's financials. IYBA is an association, and associations we enjoy what's called a 501c6 not-for-profit status. That doesn't mean our job is to lose money. That means that we have a preferential tax status with the IRS. But we're a business just like everybody else is. The joy is that we're not a business that has to earn huge profits so that we can pay shareholders and do wonderful things on their spare time, like drive Aston Martins, fly jets, and things like JP is used to doing. We get to plug along and keep our expenses in check with our revenues. Last year when I was here giving this update, we were trending to be a little bit, revenues were a little bit ahead of expenses. This year, our revenues are very, very much in line with last year. Unfortunately, our expenses are very, very different from last year. And the reason for that is twofold. One of which we had no anticipation of, no way to know it was coming. And that's something that I'll talk a little bit more about here in a few minutes, but it's a lawsuit that we've been involved in since March 1st of 2024 regarding an antitrust accusation. Antitrust is a very, very difficult thing to navigate, and it being difficult, the only consolation we have is it's really, really expensive. So we've been dealing with that, and at this time last year, your board of directors made plans to champion some platforms and products for the use of the industry and for the enhancement of professionalism in the industry that come at a cost. And of course, not being able to activate revenue streams for those has been good for you because you get to use them and they're still free, but it's been bad for us because we're still funding them. So last year at this time, we were at about $2,150,000 on the revenue side, and we were at about $1,950,000 on the expense side. And at the end of the year, we ended up at about 93 on the plus side. This year, we're at about 2,148 on revenue, and we're at about 2,680 on expenses. So we're way behind last year. We're about 800 change behind last year. The good news is you have a board of directors that has been shepherding and stewarding this association since its inception in late 1987, and they've been conservative with your treasury. That's helped us to weather this storm. It's not something that we can weather forever. I mean, something's got to give, and that's another job that your board has undertaken is Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. And, you know, like Jack Reacher, we hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. So we will continue to monitor the situation. I'll talk a little bit more about that in some of my comments as we go forward. But it's a challenging year financially as opposed to last year. You know, it's always fun to get up here and say, man, we're doing great. We're progressing. We're getting bigger. We're making money and everything's good. This year, unfortunately, I don't get to deliver that same message. Next year, some of the things that you're going to see that'll be a little bit different is, you know what, I'm going to take a break from the trend and I'm going to take an opportunity to say thank you to some people. Number one, Bob always starts with the thank you to our sponsors, and without our sponsors, we can't do any of this stuff. Another thing that Bob mentioned was a thank you to the staff, and Wendy and Elise and Lois and Alex and Saida and Kevin do an amazing job to help us keep things on track here, and I'd like to ask all of you to help me thank them for doing a beautiful job. Our board of directors works hard. They're volunteers. Grant has learned this year that the job of the presidency is a big job. It takes a lot of effort. When I was president, we had a different executive director in place, and I learned a very, very valuable lesson. When Bob came in, it was really easy because I did all the work, so he just kind of skated for 6 years. But in reality, leadership in this association requires a lot of work. Part of it's because the ladies and gentlemen who engage in it take it seriously because it's for your benefit. But a person that I'd really like to shine a light on at the moment is Bob Saxon. This is probably the 50th or 55th one of these seminars that Bob has done. Each and every time he does them, he gets up early. He gets a copy of the Sun Sentinel from the guy. He steals it from the guy who's washing his windshield on the corner of 17th Street and Federal Highway. He reads something in the sports pages about, I don't know, some old history note about Whitey somebody or other who did something special on this day 60 years ago. But Bob researches these things. He prepares diligently for these, and he does a beautiful job of shepherding these events time and time and time again. So I'd like to ask you to thank him for what he's done for you and for me and for all of us for a long, long time. I can only think of one time that Bob wasn't here to do one of these. I got the call in the morning that I had to do the MC. He claimed he wasn't well. My real question is, do they put mustard on the bologna and white bread at the county? Because I think that's where he really was. But one of the other reasons that I point that out is that in 2025, your board of directors has looked at what our finances are and where are our expenses and where can we still provide professional services without having our expense load be quite as high as it is. These events are extremely expensive to do in the hotels. And while we love to do them and the networking is important, what we're going to do in 2025 is we're going to change our platform or our program a little bit. And we're going to take our seminars and educational events and we're going to target them a little bit differently. We're going to time them a little bit differently. And we're going to focus our attention on sales-driven seminars that will take place in the week or weeks prior to the major boat shows. And our working titles right now, or our working theory right now, is that before Miami, we will do an event that'll be an online event that will give you great preparation to win the pregame show, or to win the pre-show game, if you will. And I will honestly admit that these are plagiarized ideas from a big company in our business that does things really, really well. But it makes a lot of sense. We're going to help the community understand how they can prepare best for success at a boat show. Prior to the Palm Beach show, we're going to focus our attention on how do we win the boat show game? How do you become the most effective that you can be at the boat show? Prior to the Lauderdale show, we'll do a how do you win the post-show game? How do you capitalize on the opportunities that you enjoyed during the show and make sure you don't squander those? So we think that these are valuable pieces. We've been doing East Coast and West Coast yacht sales summits. They're focused on the yacht sales component. We do a lot of legal, we do a lot of international, we do flag state insurance and all the rest of it. And we will continue to offer those, but we're going to do them in a little bit different format, thereby saving ourselves a lot of money, bringing you quality content, and hopefully living to fight for another day. So you'll see these as changes. And the reason I wanted to highlight Bob's contribution is because we won't have the events like this as it stands right now through the course of 2025. We'll see what happens after that. But one of our big targets is hopefully in January of 26 to do a nationwide conference with all of the associations. YBAA and IYBA have been working beautifully together for the last 3-4 years. JP and I started conversation long before that. When JP was president and I was president, we kind of linked arms and thought, how can we work together as associations to raise the level of professionalism across the industry and do it in collaboration with one another? And I think we've been successful in achieving that. And I think we can do more of that. The folks out in California want to get on board with us. The folks in the Northwest want to get on board with us. Ontario, British Columbia, everybody wants to be a part of the puzzle. In fact, even MIBA, we do a 2-day summit over in Monaco in the spring. And that's the MIBA Summit, where we do a new build and refit and yacht sales charter in the law. So collaboration and cooperation and uplifting professionalism through the industry has been a very big focus for us in the associations over the last couple of years, and we will continue to do that. So look for more announcements about a nationwide conference that would probably take place here in South Florida in January of 2026. Unless I get objection and we have to go to Providence, Rhode Island or some, not January. Okay, Fort Lauderdale it is. deal. In January of 2025, we will have one more networking event, and that's going to be our town hall meeting. It takes place January 23rd at the Farmers Table in Boca Raton. Our bylaws mandate that we have an annual meeting each year. We will do the announcement of our new board of directors, our awards, an update on where we are with the association, and an opportunity for everybody to get together. It won't be quite the same as the event that we did here last year, which was a big black tie gala with entertainment and all that. It'll be a little bit more low-key, but it'll be a very nice networking and gathering event. So that'll take place here. We will continue here in South Florida at Boca Raton at the Farmers Table. It's right off of 95. It's very easy to get to. We'll also continue to do the hospitality suites at the boat shows. Miami, we will sponsor the Exhibitors Lounge, which is in the northeast corner of the main tent at Herald Plaza. We feed you. You're a member, y'all come. Even if you're not a member, y'all come. If you're an exhibitor at the show, we support that. And we thank very much to the sponsors that help us offset the expense for that. So that'll be what we do at the beginning of our year. Palm Beach will do participation at the Bend. We're going to do a yacht sales summit upstairs on the first morning of the show, as we've done the last couple of years. David Moss and the group at Alley Moss Rogers Lindsay have been wonderful supporters and helpers to that, as have Moore and Company. Thank you, Aaron and Michael. And Robert Allen Law has also been a big sponsor and supporter of that. Gianfranco Puopolo from PG Legal in Monaco, Milan, Rome, and parts unknown, is also one of our great sponsors for that. So that's what's going on with YBAA. Compass Magazine is going well. We're typically at 64 pages. It's out quarterly. It's a pretty elegant production, if I do say so myself. Our staff does a beautiful job of soliciting great articles for that. If you don't read it, you should read it. It's very, very valuable information that you find in there. Two of our biggest projects that have been expensive projects, but very, very worthwhile projects, have been yachtbroker.org/yachter. What are they? I think most of you know. Yachtbroker.org is the B2B product. It's our industry database. Right now, we have just under 15,000 boats in yachtbroker.org. If you count all of the boats that are public and all the boats that are private. And what is a private boat? If HMY, Laura and Mike have 82-foot Viking that they want to put into the system so that it can be shared with their brokers and be seen on their website and so on, it's in there, but they keep it marked private because it's not something that should show up in Grant's feed when someone goes into Burgess's website and wants to do a worldwide search. But it is fed into Yachter unless they decide that they don't want it there. What is Yachter? You know what Yachter is, I hope. Yachter is the public-facing, lead-generating, advertising, or marketplace for the public to view your listings. What's the difference between Yachter and everybody else out there? I mean, for the love of God, do we need yet another shiny sequin for us all to, divert our attention to? Well, the fact of the matter is Yachter is unique because Yachter is not a profit model like all of the other products that you see out in the marketplace. Yachter's purpose is to expose your listings to the public, but we have a mindset that we have developed in this industry, and I'm as entrenched in this stuff as you guys are, right? I got my license in 1992, and there was this thing that Al Gore had brought forward called the internet, and I thought it was going to be like Betamax or cassette tapes or something, It's another flash in the pan that I'm going to spend a bunch of money on, and it's going to go away. But lo and behold, it has endured, and Jessica Moffat brought this thing forward. That was a pretty cool idea. So instead of paying a lung and a kidney and your child's college tuition to Walter Sullivan and signing up for the Buck system, you got to participate in this program where you could actually display to the public information about your boats with pictures, and they could interact with your listing. It was far more elegant than boxes of boats. How many people remember when the motorboating and sailing rep used to come into your office and pick up a legal page with 12 boxes on it, with your Eckert's photos and a brief description of the boat, abbreviated 3SR2H, T/3208, CATS, platform, ice teak, however we used to abbreviate our listings in 25 or 60 characters or less so that we could get into 60 days later or 90 days later, motorboating, sailing, power and motor yacht, yachting, the sport fishing, whatever magazine it was that you wanted to be in. Here came this new medium. We've become addicted to that. And we become addicted to what we believe is lead generation. And what I believe we need to change our mindset to is, instead of relying on a vehicle to deliver you leads and charging you for those leads or justifying the price for that vehicle by saying, well, here's the way you got to look at it. It's $190 a month per boat for the lead generation for that boat. Well, if you got 400 boats, do the math. That's a lot of money. That's a little under 80 grand for that, okay? You don't want to do that, 8 grand. So what Yachter does very, very differently is when a yacht broker, when Bill Bolin puts his 54-foot Sea Ray Sundancer in yachtbroker.org and it populates in Yachter, and a guy who's sitting on his couch in Cleveland on Sunday afternoon watching the Browns lose again and decides he can't wait till this freaking season is over and we get to go boating again next year, but I want a bigger boat, and he types into Google 54 Sea Ray Sundancer. With the SEO work that we've done with yachtbroker.org and Yachter, and the unique content, think about that for a second because it's critically important. The unique content that yachtbroker.org allows Bill to attach to his listing with digital floor plans, links to the major magazine publications that have articles about that boat, all of his photography, all of his unique descriptions about that boat that make it unique on the internet, which is critically important. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we can do that. But when he has created that listing and it's unique, it trends up higher in Google, and the customer goes and sees his boat on there. Now, one of the things that we're used to looking for is, oh, is it going to say S&J Yachts on there? It may not. It may say yachter.com. It doesn't matter as long as the customer sees your boat. Does anybody know where the best place to hide a dead body is on the internet? Page 2 of Google, right? You got to be on page 1. And we're on page 1. We're not always on page 1 with yachter.com, but we're almost always on page 1, be it S&J, Galati, HMY, United, SYS, Burgess, Italian Yacht Group, whatever group it is, we're always trending high. And the big key element that all of this leads up to is that when the client looks at that listing, there's only one place he has the ability to contact to learn about that boat. That's Bill Bolin's email address and his cell phone. It doesn't go through HubSpot. It doesn't go to, unless your company has said we want it to go to an 800 number so we can track it. And we can do that for you if that's what you want to do. But it takes you directly to the listing broker. How many people out here buy things on the internet? Yeah, me neither, right? Everybody does. I bought some stupid things, right? I bought an airplane or two here and there. We all buy cars, buy watches, we buy whatever the heck it is that we want to buy on the internet these days. And now we become accustomed to, well, hell, it's 9:45 in the morning. I want it by the time it's dinner time today, right? We're accustomed to getting up fast. But we become accustomed to electronic shopping and digital shopping. And what we want when we're buying something complex is we want to be able to talk to the person who knows the answers. Nobody knows the answers better than the person who listed that boat. Use yachtbroker.org. Use Yachter. drive the leads directly to you. Now, the problem that we've all become accustomed to is that we depend upon some platform to tell us how much we're getting for our money. You have to go back to what I used to do old school in the early or mid-90s when I was sitting at my 188 square foot global headquarters of Flannery Yachts and keep a note next to your blotter or on your phone or wherever. And when someone calls you and says, hey, Bill, I want to know about that 54 Sea Ray that I just found on your website, you give them, you engage with them, you get started with them. But Bill's got to remember to ask them, where did you learn about that boat? And we very, very often blow right past that because it doesn't matter. As long as a guy called me, I don't give a darn where he found out about it. It's critically important that you start tracking, because what you're going to find is they found it on Google, they found it in your website, or they found it in Yacht. And for the price, you can't beat that. So that's enough of my sales pitch for Yacht. It's a great product. Many, many companies are engaged. Many, many companies are enjoying it. Many, many companies are using it to power their websites. We have made great strides for public engagement. We're doing pay-per-click. We're doing Google AdWords. We're doing banner advertising. We're doing social media. We're about to ramp up more of our marketing campaign. Unfortunately, we've had a few distractions here of late that have siphoned off a couple of dollars that we would like to have used to focus on that. But that's all we can do is the best that we can do. The add-on product to that, obviously, is Boat Docs. Boat Docs is your industry-owned, end-to-end document processing solution that allows you to create your listing and go all the way to the closing. If there's something wrong with it, we need to know. We've had great volunteers from United Yacht Sales, Galata Yachts, from Allied Marine, Nicole, Julianne. Julianne, where are you? I know you're in the room here. Julianne's over here. Nicole is gonna be here. Oh, there she is. Nicole is here. Kathy from United. They gave well over a half of their day one day to Garrett, besides the countless hours that they've done leading up to that, to really dial in on, okay, this is what we need in order to make this our product to use. And we've implemented the changes that we need to. I can tell you that Brewer Yacht Sales in Connecticut, who does a lot of transactions, uses the product exclusively. Aspire, Pier 1, I can't think of the names of a couple of the other companies, but there are many companies that have abandoned other platforms and are using this exclusively right now. I know there are some things going on in the industry that are causing some companies to be reluctant to make changes, but I strongly encourage you to get familiar with it. I think when you see it, you'll get right with it. It's a product that can give you the security and the functionality that you need. We've had to compete with something that has been 14 years, 15 years in the making, that we've been accustomed to having customized to our needs. And it's difficult to replicate that functionality, but we've been able to pretty well do so. And if there's something that you need to let us know what it is. With regard to our legal updates, Melanie made mention a little while ago about Chapter 326, the Yacht Shipbrokers Act in the state of Florida. We are one of the 2 states that are regulated, and actually Virginia does have licensing, but I think it's for dealers, not for brokers themselves. But Chapter 326, the Yacht Shipbrokers Act, is the statute that we are regulated by the state. In the 2024 legislative session, we were successful in championing change to that statute to increase professionalism and enhance consumer protection. And 4 of the things that we did to change the statute are important things for you to know. Number 1, that statute said that if you enter the state of Florida and act as a broker in expectation of compensation and engage in the sale of a vessel from 32 feet to 300 gross tons, you must be licensed under this statute. We've changed that in 2 ways. The number 1 way is up to 300 gross tons has been removed. And thank you, David Moss, for having helped to create the language in a federal statute with regard to 500-ton flagging for recreational purposes in the state of Florida, in the United States. And what they've done is they've changed the language to define vessels that are for recreational purposes or for charter, and the ultimate beneficial use is for recreation. So if you want to engage in the sale of a boat in the state of Florida over 32 feet, you must be licensed in the state of Florida. Unless you are a foreign broker. That doesn't mean you have to have an accent. It doesn't mean you have to have a passport from somewhere else. It means that you're a non-licensed broker in the state of Florida. And a foreign broker may now enter the state of Florida and act as a broker in expectation of compensation, provided the deal is done in its entirety with a Florida licensed broker. That's change number 2. So if someone comes in from Annapolis, for many, many years, we've been between a rock and a hard place to be in compliance with the law. Somebody calls Tom up and says, hey, Tom, I want to know about this 100-foot Ocean Alexander that you have for sale. And Tom says, yeah, dude, look, you're from Baltimore. You're a nice guy. You acted very professionally, but you're not licensed in the state of Florida. My license is at risk if I let you come here and we do a deal together. Now Tom can say, yes, you come here. We can do the deal. I shepherd the deal in its entirety. Therefore, we know that the deal is done in compliance with the laws of the state of Florida. It opens up your ability to do business and provide a better service for your listing client. Number 3 change is if you want to go from being a salesman to being a broker, you used to have to mark 730 days off of the calendar. You didn't have to list anything. You didn't have to sell anything. You just had to have your pulse, your $500, and be ready to go. No felonies, theoretically. You just had to mark time and then move on to becoming a broker. Can't do that anymore. Now what you have to do is you have to either attain 20 CEUs or you have to demonstrate that you've been intimately involved from beginning to end in the sale of 4 deals. So some of that, we have a little bit of a challenge, and one of the things that we're meeting with Melanie on today is how do we actually quantify that? Well, the lawyers in the room are qualifying for CEUs by being here today. CEUs are certified educational units, and they're very, very important in maintaining your professional licensing. That's what we're trying to do. But the other problem that we have is we have the honor of being in the division of condominiums, mobile homes, and land sales, which is the perfect fit for yacht brokers, if I'm not mistaken, or at least in 1987 it was. What we're trying to do through legislation this year, it's not something that we can do under rulemaking, we have to do it in the agency bill, is we've asked Melanie Griffin, your secretary, who was here a few minutes ago, to include in the agency bill language that would move us from the current division in the DBPR over to professions. Because if we get moved over to professions, then we have a mechanism in place where we can quantify education. It is a good idea, isn't it? So that enhances professional standard. That enhances consumer protection. That is what we're all about. The 4th thing that is important in the change that you need to know is that if you're a convicted felon, you can't get a license. Okay? Is that, are you able to appeal a decision like that? Sure. Most convicted felons are familiar with the appeal process. So it's probably not a foreign concept to them, right? But I think it's going to be hard for them to prevail. So no felons, no more 300 gross tons, no more, pulsing $500 and now you're a broker because you marked off time. And what was the 4th item? The 4th item was out-of-state brokers allowed to come to the state of Florida. Legislative, we're going into professions, and the 800-pound gorilla in the room, or the elephant, if you will, is something I alluded to a little while ago called our antitrust lawsuit. I have been warned by attorneys. I guess, Todd, is your teeth itching yet? Are you afraid? Be scared. Be very scared. I'm not a man who's short of opinions. I have learned to keep some of them to myself. It's only taken me 3 wives to do that, but so far I'm figuring it out. So we have become the copycat victims, or the victims of what is widely described as a copycat lawsuit. In the real estate industry, antitrust attorneys felt that there was a need to go after the realtors because of anti-competitive and unfair pricing practices. And as it turned out in the District of Western Missouri, the plaintiffs prevailed, and a jury found in favor of the plaintiffs and levied a judgment against a number of real estate companies in the amount of about $1.8 billion. And when you violate the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act, it means that you're entitled to treble damages. Not a word we use in the language a whole lot these days, but quick math will tell you that's $5.4 billion worth of exposure. As often happens in the legal world, it boils down to business decisions. You know, the system is designed to keep right from wrong, but in this day and age in America, it's about business. And when you're levied with a potential exposure of $5.4 billion, you have to make a business decision. And the real estate companies, in order to go to the appeal process, would have to have posted a $5.4 billion bond to appeal this decision. And they said, that's just untenable. What's it going to cost us to move on with life? So they made settlements. And when they made those settlements, it set a precedent for other plaintiffs' attorneys. My opinion is that they're predatory and opportunistic, but that doesn't matter because I'm not getting paid for my opinions. I had to throw that in, Todd. I'm sorry. But what it did is it created a precedent for antitrust plaintiffs' attorneys to go after commission-based transactional facilitators in industries around the world, around the country. We happen to be kind of a sexy industry. It looks like we make a whole pile of money and the coffers are rich and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is quite fat and juicy. So they've come after us. And the unfortunate part is we believe that what they're alleging is untrue. We are defending ourselves vigorously. The unfortunate part is it's a very, very expensive and time-consuming process. The greatest update that I can give you right now is there's a process laid out for all this stuff. And the process started with them filing a suit. Then the judge said, oh, wait a second, there are a couple of you that want to file suits, so I want you to file a consolidated complaint. The consolidated complaint was filed in June, I think it was June 9th. Then there's a process that's long established for you to reply and respond and comply and do all the things that you need to do. So they filed the complaint. We replied to the complaint. They get a chance to amend their language in response to our reply. Then we get to reply to their reply, and then it goes into the judge's hands. And the judge deliberates. What we did as a group, the joint defense group, responded to the complaint with a motion to dismiss with prejudice. There are 3 ways it can go. 1, motion to dismiss with prejudice. In English, get the hell out of my courtroom. 2, motion to dismiss without prejudice. Hey, you know what? This case isn't strong enough. Here's what's wrong with it. Go reshape your argument. 3, yeah, you guys have got a case. Fight it out. We're hoping and praying for a motion to the judge to approve a motion for dismissal with prejudice. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. We're waiting for the judge to tell us. We are all in hold right now. The unfortunate part is another part of the process is called discovery, and it's required that the attorneys do discovery, start looking through documents and making their case against and for this whole thing, and that takes place through this time, and it's expensive as well. We're on the edges of our seats waiting to hear what the judge has to say, and that will dictate where we go in the future. Do we turn left? Do we turn right? Do we go straight ahead? We don't know yet. That's the update on the antitrust suit. It's a travesty in my book, but it's part of the system. You know, we live in the greatest nation in the world, according to many. I think it's a pretty cool place to live. I'm proud to have been born here. I think we enjoy some of the greatest liberties and freedoms and opportunities of any people on the earth, but no system is perfect. And I would dare say that maybe this is something we could tune, but it ain't never going to happen, because the greatest perpetrators of antitrust in the United States are antitrust plaintiffs' attorneys. So they got a racket, man. They've got it figured out, and they built it their way. That's all the news that's fit to print. We have our next panel. Are you guys ready to come up? Sweet. Bob's going to come up and introduce them. I'm here all day, folks. I'm not going to be very funny. I'm sorry, but don't forget to tip your waitresses. And if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thanks. Thank you, buddy.